It's Saturday, July 24th, 2021. I want to share a couple articles with you today I was reading earlier, and it made me really think how much we take for granted and how much we have to be thankful for here in America right now. But also, things are about to change. The standard of living for millions of people is about to change. Your life is going to change. My life is going to change. And yet we take so much for granted today. I want to share these articles with you. Number one, this comes out of the Los Angeles Times. Lebanon's people line up in queues of humiliation as their country unravels. And this really made me think how close America is to being in the same situation as Lebanon, and how right now so many people take so much for granted. I'm guilty of it. I take things for granted. I'm sure some of you take things for granted. And we really have to wake up to what's going on here and how close. We're hanging on by a thread, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be a Lebanon. We're going to be a Venezuela, okay? And if we are not awake, if we're not preparing for this day, we're going to be in very, very big trouble. We're going to be victims like so many of the people in Venezuela and Lebanon and many other countries. So make sure that you are preparing and that you're not ignoring these warnings. How would you like to wait an hour in line for gasoline? That's even if the station is open. That's what's happening in Lebanon right now. You need medication. Something as simple as an aspirin could set you back an entire day as you hunt from pharmacy to pharmacy just for an aspirin. You could go to a Rite Aid right now, a Walgreens. You could go to that god-awful Walmart. You could go to the grocery store and you'll get an aspirin. In many countries, it's not that easy, but we take it for granted. Things are going to change, ladies and gentlemen. A grocery store run is a race against accelerating inflation, and you will need time to work around power cuts. Sometimes these power cuts last 23 hours a day. Think about if your power was being cut off for multiple hours a day, let alone 23 hours a day. People here in the desert would be dropping like flies. They'd be dying. People in the Phoenix area, people parts of Texas, New Mexico, they'd be dropping like flies if they didn't have air conditioning. This is life in Lebanon, where a 21-month long government-engineered economic implosion, the World Bank calls it a deliberate depression, has transformed everyday tasks into a gauntlet of fuel, power, water, medicine, and basic goods shortages. How many of those people in Lebanon thought that this could never happen? And now it's happening. The international community spoke vaguely of corruption, but continued to pour aid into Lebanon with little regard for how it was spent. And I look at how there's such little regard on how money is spent here in America. We look at all this stimulus. We look at the money to help people that are facing eviction. And there's $45 billion of allocated money by Congress that has not gone to help renters in this country. Where is it? Where's it going? Where's all this money that went to all these large cities, all these large urban cities like Los Angeles, where I see nothing but increased homelessness? Where's the money going? There's no regard now, and nobody's watching it and how it's being spent. And we're going to have our day, ladies and gentlemen. By 2019, after years of so-called financial engineering by Lebanese central bank, which tried to lure dollars from abroad, with astronomical interest rates in what critics liken to a Ponzi scheme and a series of crises that constricted the flow of dollars into the country, the system crashed. Banks stopped giving out money, instantly paralyzing hundreds of thousands of Lebanese who couldn't access their accounts even as they watched the value of their savings wither away. The country continues to unravel to the point that traffic lights no longer function. Think about if you could not access your bank account, you couldn't get money. How do you pay your bills? How do you eat? How close are we? So many of you continue to comment and write me that your bank has closed, that your ATMs have been down, your internet's not been working. There's something really, really going on here. Air conditioning and even some lights at Beirut's airport have been turned off to consume fuel. The price of flatbread, an essential staple, has been raised 8 times just this year. We're seeing inflation, nothing like this yet, but could you imagine if this comes to America? And it's very, very possible that we could see hyperinflation in America. Many people say that we won't, but many people said that in Lebanon too, and look what they're facing. The army has gone vegetarian because it can't afford meat. Lebanese political class, the Lebanese political class has squandered the last 9 months, while the average Lebanese now makes $29 a month. Lebanon's seaside resorts are booked till the end of summer. Upscale restaurants and cafes are overcrowded. Sellers of luxury items say they've never seen so much business. How that really, to me, resembles a lot of what's happening here. Lamborghinis sold out, Ferraris sold out. You can't buy a Rolex watch at this point. A lot of the upper retail sector is doing well. Some of it not doing well, but some of it doing very well. When you look at, again, Bentley, Rolls-Royce, Ferrari, Lamborghini, McLaren, Rolex, doing very, very well. The private jet industry doing very, very well. But when you look at this country as a whole, tens of millions of people are suffering. I think they said that we have about 14 million people in America who are not getting enough food. And you look at the amount of consumer debt skyrocketing. Again, we go back to the mortgage forbearance, the rent moratorium. People are hurting. People now becoming more and more reliant on credit cards to pay their essentials. Yet, you can't buy a Rolex. Dow Jones, over 35,000. But we have 25% unemployment in this country, and we have people now getting very concerned about July 31st and these evictions. We've got big trouble in this country, yet there's a very few small percentage at the very top doing very, very well, but a majority of this country is paying the price. A lot of the spending comes from Lebanese expatriates who have come home for the summer with dollars from abroad, as well as local residents racing to spend what money they have before it completely loses value. Many of these people were running to, a couple years ago, running to the jewelry stores, buying diamonds, buying gold, buying watches. They were buying Ferraris, Lamborghinis, anything they could to dump their currency in order to have some asset instead of just holding the paper that they knew was going to zero. Banks have restricted account holders from spending any of their deposits abroad. So I guess it really isn't your money, right? Because they're telling you that, well, first off, we're not going to give you any money, and if we do, you can't spend it abroad. You can't take it out of the country. It's got to stay here. We are so close to being in the same situation, ladies and gentlemen. I think most people have no idea how close we are. Hospitality sector operating at a 70% loss. Tony Rami, he's head of this association of hospitality. He said a drink used to cost $15, now it's $3. A cover charge at a club was $60, now it's $20. He says it's like we're holding a fire sale. You're going to see fire sales here in America, I promise you that. Food prices and beverages for the country of Lebanon have shot up 670% from April 2019. Half of the Lebanese people have fallen into poverty. 1 in 6 receive government assistance. Think about that. Half of the population now is in poverty. How quick things can happen. We take a lot for granted, ladies and gentlemen. I'm guilty of it. But one thing I'm not taking for granted is time. We are running out of time, and I clearly see that we are heading in the same direction as this country, Lebanon, as Venezuela, and so many others, that this is now a race to the bottom. Everybody is printing money hand over fist. The printing presses are overheating. Everybody's doing this. It is a race to the bottom. And it's going to have the same outcome for everybody. When we do hit the bottom, it's going to be a mess. It's going to be a mess globally. This is just not America. It's not just Lebanon. It's not just Venezuela. It is everywhere. People can't buy anything. This is what a store owner in Lebanon says. People cannot buy anything. People are wishing for a war so something changes. I mean, think about that. And that's usually what comes of this is a war. They break the economy, they break you, and then they take you to war, right? So I wanted to share that article. That comes from the Los Angeles Times. And it's really a wake-up call because we're really resembling Lebanon, okay? And I know people think that America can't have an economic collapse, even though it's already begun. America can't have a dollar collapse, even though it's already begun. And their reasoning is because it's America. It just can't happen here. I mean, this is the stupidity. This is the delusion that people have. And if you think like that, you're going to be a statistic, period. Here's another article. This comes from Survival Blog. The American standard of living will collapse soon. For those that have made the hard decisions and remain solvent, the coming chaos is a foregone conclusion, and they are prepared for that. And just to share a little bit of this article, one pair of Harvard economists has estimated the total price tag for this health crisis that we've gone through will be over $16 trillion. And that's if things get back to normal by this fall, which it looks like they're probably not going to. It looks like things are going to be closing back down again. And this is going to be, I think, the final nail in the coffin for most small business in America. The economy has stagnated. You cannot say we're in an economic recovery because people are spending the money they saved during this shutdown, the money that they receive from the government in their benefits, in their stimulus, in their unemployment, while not paying rent. So there is no economic recovery. There's no doubt we're seeing shrinkflation, stagflation, and a very stagnant economy right now. Now we have rising inflation to go with that. We're watching Main Street be decimated. How many small businesses have been shuttered forever in America? We don't know. They don't even tell us how many businesses have been shut down. I've seen estimates from 100,000 to in the millions. Nobody knows. The government gave many of these businesses loans. 75% of it had to pay wages of people who weren't working. It didn't help the mom and pop businesses, those little shops. It didn't help them pay their rent. It didn't help them to keep the lights on. It didn't help them to pay themselves any sort of income. Did nothing. Unemployment continues in this country. We got the jobless claims last week, 419,000. We're looking at, if you go to shadowstats.com, John Williams, you're looking at real unemployment in America at 25%, national debt 28.4 trillion. And when I watch the television, nobody talks about it. The television isn't telling people what is really happening. People, and this is the scary part here, people watch the television. They watch these people in the $2,000, $3,000 suits. They watch, the people on Fox Business, the CNBCs, the puppets for corporate America. They watch them, and people are making decisions on the flawed information that they are receiving. All these people right now that are buying houses, the same people driving up prices along with the Blackstones and the BlackRocks, but people, this FOMO, this fear of missing out, people buying houses because if I don't buy a house today, I'll never be able to get one. They're just going to continue to go up forever, and I'll never be able to buy a house. They would not be buying these houses if they realized that we were on the brink of a financial cliff. Yet, because they're being kept in the dark, they're literally helping to build the cliff even higher. They are going to be the people that suffer. These are going to be some of the people that suffer the most. They took on some of the most massive debt during the worst possible time. They took on debt during a bubble. They bought into a housing market in the biggest bubble we've ever seen in history. The politicians, the bankers, the one percenters, they'll be watching this from their plush offices in DC, their plush offices down on Wall Street, and they're going to be laughing all the way to the bank. They can't wait to take those houses back. They're happy that you bought in these massive bubbles because they know they're going to get these houses back. And if you're lucky, you're going to be able to rent your house back. But more than likely you won't, because you won't even have a job. Many people are going to be lucky if they live in a tent. Many people will be lucky if they live in an RV. This is what it's coming to, ladies and gentlemen. As I drive around more and more in the desert here, I see more and more cars in the driveways. I see more and more garage doors closed down because people are now living in the garages. People are renting their garages out. We're coming into a very different time, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to look a lot more like Lebanon and a lot less like America. So I wanted to share those articles with you this weekend. I thought it was important, and the more that I think about how close we are to something happening, the more I feel like I'm not even prepared enough. I did order more gold, more silver yesterday from BULLION. I'm gonna probably order maybe a little bit more emergency food. I'm gonna get out, continue my security preparations with training, hit the gym today, got a good workout in. And, to those people out there that, continue to write me and say, what's the solution? Well, the solution is you. The solution is be your own central bank. The solution is be in charge of your own money. Hold your own money. Don't rely on these banks. How many of these people in Lebanon wish that they never put a dime in the bank? Now they can't even get it. How many of these people wish that they owned some gold and some silver instead of a paper currency? How many? There's no going back, ladies and gentlemen. When this happens, it's going to happen fast, and there's no repeats. There's no do-overs, and there's going to be no finger pointing. You can point at the politicians, you can point at the bankers down on Wall Street, but at the end of the day, you better look yourself in the mirror and point at yourself, because you have been warned. It's up to you. Are you going to do something about it, or are you just going to hope it goes away? Because the only person you're going to be able to point at is the person in the mirror.